Who jumped out to you, and why do you hate everybody else's teams?
There were definitely some quote unquote winners or guys
Mm-hmm.
that stood out. Darius Robinson from Missouri came in. I mean, he was in my mid January 2 round mock. Darius Robinson was a second round pick, and a player that was easy to like on film because he looks the part. He's long, 6'5", 290 pounds, moves well. But he also he showed better technique and better understanding how to break down blockers and get to the quarterback. And we saw that throughout the week of practice. He was one of the best players down there in Mobile, maybe worked himself into that top 40, top 30 conversation. Quinyon Mitchell from day one was a big-time player, the corner from Toledo. He has a chance to be a top 20 pick. A couple tackles. This is a very tackle-rich draft in the first round at the top. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. Both those guys are kind of jockeying for position in terms of who are going to be the first 5 or 6 tackles drafted. Tavondre Sweat, all 360 some odd pounds of him. He did not step on the scale at the Senior Bowl, which tells me maybe he's a little bit heavier than he wants to be and trying to get down those pounds before the combine. But nonetheless, good luck stopping him when he comes rolling at you with all that power behind his pads. So, but you know what? People want to talk about the quarterbacks, right? That's where a lot of the conversation shifts, and everyone overreacts to the quarterbacks. I mean, not too long ago, I remember reading Malik Willis and Carson Strong first round tweets from the Senior Bowl, and then just looking around, thinking like, guys, this is not how this works. But because of that inevitable hype, I expected Bo Nix and Michael Penix to really shine and for the hype machine to get out of control at the Senior Bowl. But really, they had very up and down weeks. And I usually ignore the quarterbacks the first practice, give them a day to settle in, new receivers, new environment. But then by practice 2 and 3, I'm looking for improved timing, placement, and overall, it was just a mixed bag from both Nix and Penix. And so, and that's not to say they hurt themselves at all, but I don't think they helped themselves necessarily. And both these guys have 5, 6. Nix has 5 years, Penix has 6 years of tape where we've seen enough on these guys to know what they are. But really, the entire quarterback position as a whole. I do a wrap-up article where I pick one winner from each position, and for the quarterbacks, I went with Spencer Rattler from South Carolina because he was just the most consistent. But it'll be interesting as we debate Nix and Penix throughout the process. I've got plenty of teams or plenty of people in the league who are steadfast that Nix is going top 20. And part of that are the quarterback needy teams that are picking in the teens. But it'll be really interesting to see how these quarterbacks separate themselves or maybe don't separate themselves the rest of the process.
I think Michael Penix is a really interesting prospect for a lot of reasons. There seems to be this idea after the Sugar Bowl that, like, this guy's like the best player we've ever seen. Like, it's like, okay, like he's extremely accurate. The anticipation's there. But if you're looking for things like he is older, the knees are an issue. He hasn't really done a ton when Kalen DeBoer was not on the headset with him. But a lot of those things do translate. He seems like a guy that might be there. When you draft a quarterback, it seems like we want this guy to be our guy for 10, 15 years if we can. He's probably not that guy. What do you make of his future, and what do you see as sort of how the NFL views a guy that's going to be, I think, a complicated assessment?
Definitely complicated. He's a polarizing prospect. There's no way around that. He won't be for everybody. And I think that he certainly benefited from the situation in Washington. And this is where you, as an evaluator, you have to separate reasons and excuses. Was he the reason for that offense being, what it was? Or are we making excuses, because he had the receivers, throwing the 3 pro receivers and the offensive line won the Joe Moore Award as the top offensive line in college football this year. The coaching in place was certainly a benefit to him. But I think the 2 playoff games was an interesting juxtaposition of 2 defenses that we saw against Texas, very vanilla. They knew exactly what Texas was going to try and do, and he was able to exploit that. Now against Michigan, which is the closest thing to an NFL defense that he has ever seen, he struggled. And before he even got the snap, it seemed like he was thinking about that impending pressure that was coming for him. So just the inconsistent areas of his game, some of the mechanical stuff. Anticipation over the middle of the field is a real issue for him. His pressure reaction is very up and down. Those type of things you worry about in his transition to the pro game, but you love the arm confidence. You love his aggressiveness and willingness to attack every square inch of the field. It could be a winning formula in the right situation, but he's just not going to be for everybody. And he could be drafted 30th, he could be drafted 80th, and I don't think either spot would really be that surprising.